But the gallows accomplished what years of naval warfare alone could not. As pirate captains and their crews swung above the Thames, their bodies left to decay inside iron gibbets, the dream of life beneath the black flag began to die with them. Sailors who once chased fortune now feared execution dock more than any storm or battle. The Golden Age of Piracy ended not only through cannon and warships, but through a campaign of relentless justice that shattered the pirate world forever.
Enjoy the video and don't forget to subscribe.
Trace your finger along the map from London toward the Atlantic and picture the year 1722 as the smell of rotting oak, boiling pine tar, damp hemp rigging, stale bilge water, sulfur, and cold river mist drifted across the Thames, while snapping canvas echoed between towering masts anchored beside crowded wharves. The Golden Age of Piracy had entered its final and bloodiest chapter. Merchant convoys crossed oceans beneath constant fear because every voyage risked interception by heavily armed pirate sloops carrying crews hardened by years of violence. Yet an even greater terror awaited those finally captured alive. The largest mass execution of pirates in history did not begin with a gallows, but with months of relentless naval pursuit, careful intelligence gathering, and the systematic destruction of pirate havens stretching from the Bahamas to the coast of West Africa. Royal governors strengthened cooperation with captains sailing under letters of marque, while Royal Navy frigates exceeding 500 tons displaced immense firepower through broad batteries mounted behind thick oak planking, reinforced by massive white oak futtocks secured with hand-forged iron spikes nearly 12 inches long. Their pronounced tumble-home reduced incoming fire while improving stability during heavy Atlantic swells. Pirate articles of agreement that once promised equal shares and compensation for lost limbs gradually became meaningless as hunger, betrayal, disease, and overwhelming naval superiority destroyed entire flotillas. By the spring of 1722, dozens of captured pirates filled overcrowded prison cells awaiting trials that would culminate in an execution spectacle unlike anything the maritime world had ever witnessed. The condemned men arrived in chains after exhausting voyages aboard prison hulks, where damp air accelerated rot inside every timber, while iron shackles weighing several pounds rubbed flesh raw with each movement of the rolling deck. Court proceedings moved rapidly because English Admiralty law treated piracy as a direct assault upon royal authority rather than ordinary theft. Witnesses described merchant vessels stripped of cargo, passengers beaten with belaying pins, and crews forced across weather decks slippery with blood and seawater. Confiscated pirate weapons lay before the judges as evidence, including bronze cannon cast from an alloy averaging nearly 88% copper and 10% tin with trace quantities of lead, mounted upon elm carriages reinforced by iron fittings blackened from repeated recoil. Every powder charge contained approximately 75% saltpeter, 15% charcoal, and 10% sulfur packed inside coarse cloth cartridges whose ignition generated expanding gases exceeding thousands of pounds of pressure, driving iron round shot through oak planking where shattered wood fibers transformed into lethal splinters capable of killing sailors far beyond the actual impact. Surveyors measured seized sloops between 70 and 90 feet along the keel, with hulls repeatedly repaired during careening operations that exposed their bottoms for scraping away barnacles before fresh pine tar sealed oakum hammered deeply into every seam. Each technical detail presented during the trials reminded spectators that these vessels had not been crude raiders but efficient machines of organized maritime violence designed for speed, endurance, and destruction. The morning of execution began long before sunrise as heavy fog settled across the Thames and execution crews inspected every timber supporting the gallows. Massive oak beams more than 10 inches thick rested upon deeply anchored uprights fastened with wrought iron straps capable of supporting the combined weight of numerous condemned men simultaneously. Hemp ropes nearly 1 inch in diameter had been twisted from long fibers, soaked, stretched, and dried to ensure predictable strength before each noose received careful adjustment according to the prisoner's height and estimated body weight. Officials feared accidental failures because broken ropes or collapsing beams could transform royal justice into public humiliation. Soldiers carrying flintlock muskets loaded with paper cartridges formed disciplined ranks around the procession, while mounted constables controlled enormous crowds pressing toward the riverbanks for a clear view. Prisoners advanced slowly with wrists bound behind their backs, their worn clothing stained by months inside damp stone cells where poor ventilation encouraged mold, vermin, and disease. Some prayed continuously while others defiantly shouted that they had once commanded swift sloops capable of outrunning almost any merchantman under full canvas. Nearby shipwrights paused their work shaping curved futtocks with broad adzes. Caulkers lowered heavy irons used to drive oakum into hull seams, and chandlers abandoned barrels of boiling pitch, because nearly every worker connected to London's maritime economy understood that this spectacle represented far more than punishment. It was a calculated demonstration that the Crown intended to erase the remaining power of the pirate world through fear as much as through naval force. At the appointed signal, the condemned were positioned beneath the crossbeams in tightly ordered rows while ministers delivered their final prayers almost unnoticed beneath the roar of thousands of spectators. When the supports were removed, the combined weight of so many bodies caused every hemp rope to snap violently taut, sending deep vibrations through the massive oak framework as the execution structure absorbed enormous dynamic forces. Death was seldom immediate because the short drop method commonly used during the early 18th century relied primarily upon slow strangulation rather than the instantaneous fracture of the cervical vertebrae. Many prisoners struggled for several agonizing minutes as involuntary muscle contractions tightened the nooses further with every movement. Physicians and officials observed carefully to certify death before any body could be removed, ensuring that no condemned pirate escaped through error or premature intervention. Along the river, the smell of wet timber mixed with tar, smoke, and human sweat while bells echoed across crowded docks where merchant captains watched in silence. Many had lost ships worth thousands of pounds sterling to pirate attacks, including valuable cargoes of sugar, tobacco, indigo, and East India textiles transported inside, carefully packed holds supported by thick deck beams, hanging knees, mast partners, and reinforced riders designed to withstand violent Atlantic crossings. Every visible corpse became another warning that the era when heavily armed pirate sloops dictated the rhythm of commerce across distant sea lanes was collapsing beneath relentless naval patrols, expanding intelligence networks, and increasingly coordinated imperial administration. Even after death, the punishment continued because many of the executed pirates were denied immediate burial. Selected bodies were transported to prominent points along busy waterways, where blacksmiths secured them inside heavy wrought iron gibbets weighing well over 100 pounds. These cages allowed wind, rain, salt air, and scavenging birds to reduce the corpses slowly over months and sometimes years, creating horrifying landmarks visible to every merchant sailor entering the Thames. The message required no written proclamation. Any crew considering mutiny or piracy saw exactly how the Crown intended their lives to end. Passing captains ordered apprentices to study the rusting cages as carefully as they studied charts, tides, and sounding lines. The psychological effect proved immense because fear spread faster than any naval squadron. Recruitment into pirate crews declined. Informants became more willing to betray former comrades, and colonial governors gained confidence that cooperation with the Royal Navy could finally dismantle pirate networks that had once stretched across the Caribbean, the American colonies, and the coast of West Africa. The largest mass execution of pirates in history marked far more than the deaths of dozens of condemned sailors. It symbolized the deliberate destruction of an entire maritime culture that had challenged imperial commerce for decades. Faster frigates, coordinated patrols, stronger colonial governments, harsher admiralty courts, expanding intelligence networks, and relentless public punishment combined into a single campaign that gradually ended the Golden Age of Piracy. Although isolated pirate captains continued to appear upon distant horizons for a few more years, the age when black flags dominated the Atlantic had effectively been broken beneath the gallows, leaving only weathered wrecks, scattered archives, and grim iron gibbets to remind future generations of the terrible price paid by those who chose life beneath the Jolly Roger.